Hello out there, and welcome to the No Shit Cast. I'm your host, Matt Frazier. Exciting guest tonight, folks. Miss Kathryn Kauffman is joining me. She's a psychic medium and a paranormal expert. She's on the line with me tonight. How you doing tonight, Kathryn?
Hey, man. How are you? We're doing fine here in Lexington, Kentucky.
Good weather down there, huh?
A little drizzly, and I wish that fall would come on and give me some cooler temperatures, but we take what we can get.
Well, this has been a really anticipated podcast, believe it or not. I know you gave me a great shout out there on your live show, which is on Mondays, and you Facebook Live that and Instagram that, right?
Right. Monday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we just go over a lot of paranormal topics on Monday nights and just self-help topics, too.
Well, you got a really good thing going there. It looks like you can take, like, people can write in questions and stuff to you while you're on the show. So you take live questions and stuff while you're doing this, right?
Live questions about whatever topic that we're covering. And then, too, it's also a place where people can sound off how they feel about stuff and what their conjectures are about things as well.
Yeah. That's very neat, and I love the format. But this is because we record, edit, release, right? And you were actually live without a net, with the camera and the whole 9 yards there.
Oh yeah. Well, when I was younger, I worked for a TV station in Paducah, Kentucky, doing some of the weather casting, and so I've always had a little bit of broadcasting in my blood, and I have a degree in broadcast journalism as well. That's in another life, of course, but so, going live was really natural for me, and I wanted to do the programs and save the content on my YouTube channel, because then what I do is if I, have clients during the week that have extra questions that go beyond their 60-minute session, all I have to do is send them a link to the YouTube video, which is saved from the Facebook Live, and then there's all their information.
Yeah, it's it's very well done, folks. Where can they find if they're looking you up on Facebook or Instagram? I mean, I'll put links and stuff in, but someone might be listening to this. They just look you up, right? Kathryn Kauffman.
Right, Kathryn Kauffman, Kathryn, Kauff as in Frank, MAN.
Yeah, perfect. All right,
yes,
Kathryn.
And it'll pop up.
So you are a psychic medium and a paranormal expert, okay? And then,
right.
and you said that you sort of started out, it sounds like, in broadcast journalism, right? So walk me through, what started you kind of down this road into both.
Well, I was born a psychic medium, and it runs in my family. I have an older brother who has a lot of abilities, and my mother had a lot of abilities, but she never really embraced hers because I think they scared her more than anything. And I grew up and was born on Midway Island, which is out in the North Pacific. And it's a 1 mile wide island with no cars, no TVs, no phones. And back then, it was very isolated. My dad was in the Navy, so we were
I was going to ask.
there.
Sounds like you're military brat. Yep.
Right. So I had no children to play with, and it was very, very isolating. And so, isolation and silence is one of the catalysts for improving your abilities. So being born with those abilities and then having the isolation of the island on top of it just kind of catalyzed everything. And so my mother had a hard time with that, and she used to tell me, "Oh, Kathryn, don't say that, you're scaring me," or "Don't do that, you're scaring me." And so I would see that she was upset, and so I learned how to shut my abilities down, especially when she got nervous or upset. And so for a long time, I just kind of shut them off. I didn't really use them much. I kind of did things behind the scenes where people wouldn't notice, that I could do stuff. And if I slipped up and said something that was too revealing, I would have to think of a way to explain that I knew something I shouldn't have known.
And what age
And
was
so I got,
this? About what age was this
I
when you
was
first started?
small. I can remember my first medium experience at 4. And I try to be very scientific and logical about everything. And even at 4, I was like that. So I can remember at 4, I was sitting in my room, and I heard breathing, and there was no one in there with me. So at 4, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, this either has to be something else in the room with me, or maybe I'm listening to myself breathe. So I decided at that point I was going to hold my breath. This is at 4. I was going to hold my breath, and if the breathing continued, thereby it was something else in the room with me.
Right.
And it was something else in the room with me. So,
Is this, now 4 years old. Now, did this freak you out? Was this like a holy crap?
Yes, it freaked me out. Absolutely, because at that time I could only hear them, but I couldn't see them.
Okay.
So I tried to find where the breathing was coming from in the room, which, you never can chase a sound down. And I finally figured out why after all these years. You know how you see, these shows on TV about ghost hunting, and, they're filming stuff in another room and they see something happen or they hear something and everybody goes running into the room and then the phenomena stops.
Right.
Well, the reason why it stops, and, this is where we get into the plasma electric universe, everything is connected through a web of energy.
Okay.
So when you're having phenomena happen, it's a web of energy that's being set up in the environment. So when somebody goes running into that area, what that does is it's just like a spider's web. It tears it down. It disrupts that flow of energy that's been set up, and the phenomena automatically collapses and stops. So you can't ever chase down a sound, paranormal sound that you're looking for. Because
go ahead.
As soon as you try to, you have disrupted what's going on, and it just collapses.
So you're saying like it. So when you observe it, it changes, kind of thing.
It's like Schrodinger's cat. Once you open the box,
okay,
the cat is either alive or dead. You've disrupted the web of energy when you open the box.
Yep.
As long as the box is shut, that cat can be alive or dead, either one.
Yeah, that's what there's a theory in science about observation that you never actually measure something accurately because as soon as you measure it, you're disturbing it. So
right, exactly.
Changing its energy level or whatever, things like that. So so you're saying that when it comes to chasing down like paranormal phenomena, it sounds to me like you're saying, but as soon as you start to observe it, you've changed the energy of it, thereby it changes.
Correct. Yeah.
Interesting.
Now, there are phenomena that you come in contact with that are so tactile and so real that doesn't apply. And that's happened to me before too. Specifically, doppelgangers. Doppelgangers are very, very physical, and I've only ever had one experience with them. But that was probably the scariest thing that has ever happened to me.
So there was a period of time between the age of 4 and a later age where you were, it sounds to me like you said that you were sort of suppressing or hiding this stuff, right?
Hiding out. I was hiding out. Yeah, but when you're tired or when you're sick, you can't really block your abilities that well, and so I would slip up. And people would catch me and they would go, "How did you know that?" And then I'd have to make up some lie, of how I knew that. And I went to college and tried to hide my abilities in nursing, and I did ICU nursing for 25 years. And I knew when my patient was going to die. And so, like, kind of sneakily, I would scoot the code card over near my room because I knew what was going to happen later that night. I could see, the family of that person. As a medium, I could see them kind of coming through, kind of waiting for that person to cross over. And I'm like, no, not tonight on my shift, please. So I would scoot the code card over by my room and plug it in just in case, because you're not right 100% of the time. And people would say, Kathryn, why are you plugging that in over there by your room? And I'm like, well, I think that outlet over there isn't any good. So I'm just going to plug it in over here for a while. And, I kept things covered.
So this was
9
like,
times out of 10, I saved them to get out of there to the next shift.
okay, so it wasn't.
But I knew it was going to be a bad night.
It wasn't like you hid it or tried to keep it hidden, and then at a certain age you had sort of a grand coming out kind of situation. This is something that you sort of still used for your own, personal benefit.
Yeah, I
and
used
stuff.
it for my personal benefit. You're right. And I did do paranormal consulting on the side. I worked with a group back in the 90s called Kentucky Paranormal Investigations, and I did consulting for them. We did a lot of cases in Kentucky and Louisville, um, and I think we went to Ohio once, but I'm not sure. I can't remember. It's been so long ago. But and I did readings on the side because people who were close to me, of course, it was obvious I couldn't really hide a lot of stuff from them. So I did all this stuff on the side for about 30 years, and what I wanted to do also was to gather information, gather statistics. One of the people who mentored me as a younger person was Dr. David Hoy. There was a book written about him called Super Psychic, and he lived a couple blocks down from my mom and dad, and he was a very well-known psychic in the 70s and 80s, and I also went to high school with his boy Van Hoy, but um, I did seek, guidance from Mr. and Mrs. Hoy on how to conduct myself. Psychic ethics are big with me, and also he was big on teaching you how to verify your information. When you go to a reader, most of the time, I would say probably 80 to 90% of the time, or the readers will ask you what you want to know. Well, that's not a psychic reading. A psychic reading is when the reader tells you exactly what's going on. And that information comes from the subconscious of the person being read. So what I used to do to test myself, and I still do it today, only not in the same manner as I used to have people, write their question down in a tablet, and then I'd had them turn the page over where I couldn't see it. And then I would do the reading and write down everything I got in the reading. And then at the end of the reading, the test of the reading is, does the information match what the question is?
Okay.
So then I followed, what is my percentage of accuracy? And I think Dr. Hoy did the same thing when he first started doing readings. And I think his and mine are about the same, 85, almost 90%. So, I wanted to make sure
that's staggering. That's an extremely high number. I mean, for what you're talking about, or am I wrong?
Right. No, it is. It is extremely high. But, and that's why I don't grant very many readings per week, is I put an enormous amount of pressure on myself to be accurate. Like, I want to be accurate 100% of the time. Of course, I'm not, but, you know, I'd like to be, but, you know, I guess that's the Capricorn in me coming out.
Now, is there like a process that you go through? Is there an altered state, or is it more like a premonition? I mean, how does it kind of come together for you?
Okay, so, in order to explain to myself what I'm doing,
Hmm.
I had to figure all this out on my own. Of course,
Yeah,
you
I doubt you can
know,
go to school for it, really, right? It's kind of
right,
a
right. So when you are picking up information from somebody else, and this is just what I feel happens. It's information that comes from the subconscious because 99% of everybody that comes for a reading has a feeling about something that they can't verify. Okay.
yep.
That's the way the subconscious gets information to the conscious mind, through a gut feeling, through a flash of insight, or through dreams.
Call it an
Now,
instinct too, sometimes, right?
right, right. Instinct is a psychic ability. So all of this information is in the subconscious. Spirits communicate through the subconscious. Okay. Now, in order to access that information, you have to be in a meditative brainwave state. Psychic information is transferred from persons to persons subconscious via the alpha wave state.
Okay.
That's, a light meditative wave state. Mediumship and spiritual communication is specifically transferred in theta wave, which is a deep trance state. So when I do a mediumship, what I do is an hour of theta wave meditation where I strictly channel and write everything down. Who came through for the person's name? Who came through for this person? What did they look like? What did they say? What did they show me? And then the second hour when the person comes in for the reading, again, that's the test of the reading. That information has to be correct. Otherwise, it's a miss. It's not a hit.
Okay.
I'm not connected if the stuff is wrong.
Now, this methodology that you go through, right? Do you think that this is the way it's done, or is it one of those things where it's the way it's done for you, but it's going to be different for every person?
I think that is the way that it's done. There may be small variations on the theme of, how a person gets in tune or shifts to that altered consciousness, but meditative brainwave states are the language of the subconscious. And the subconscious to me is like a big radio station that's catching all these channels from different spirits or different wavelengths from somebody else's brain waves or their memories or, the past and things like that. Now, the sad truth of it is, I feel like most psychic mediums don't really understand how their abilities work.
Okay.
They'll give an overview of how they think things work, but there's nothing verifiable. There's nothing scientific about the way that they explain it. But to me, this works. This is how we do this.
And that's probably in part to your medical background too, with having a need for things like methodology and repeatability
Yes,
and that kind of stuff, right?
right. But then you can see in different areas how this makes sense because, on a lot of paranormal shows, they'll say, oh, children see more spirits and children have more psychic experiences because they're young and unadulterated, or they're, nearer to the state of being born and more pure. All of that is not true. The scientific fact behind it is 80% of a child's brainwave state from the age of 2 to 12 is alpha or theta. So they're in the perfect reception state. And then as they reach puberty, the brain waves naturally elevate because they're paying attention to boys and girls, and it just shuts off the input.
So, So literally, it shuts their brains off. Is kind of what you're saying. There's like
Well,
once they hit
but
puberty.
that's why a lot of kids don't listen to you. You can tell them two or
Yeah.
three times something, and they just stare blankly at you, and it's probably because their brain is in theta wave.
Makes sense.
I mean, we have to learn how to pay attention. So, you know.
So when did this become for you? Like, okay, so when did you become the personality that behind this stuff? And what I mean by that, when did this become something outward, where you were doing readings, or where it was out there, that not only were you not hiding it, but you were sort of putting it out there that this is what you do?
Yeah, well, in 2013, I was a nursing administrator for a local hospital here in Lexington, and that was really taking a toll on my health and my mental state because of the stress. Because at the time I was running 2 facilities. So, and it had always been in the back of my mind, this is your sole purpose. You should be doing this. What are you doing?
So it was a
in this
calling
job?
for you. It was a calling for you to move to this kind of thing. Then is what you're saying, yeah?
Yeah, because once you help a few people and you can see that it's made a lifetime change in them, you kind of question yourself of why are you not using this? Why are you not helping more people? Yeah, right, at the hospital you help people indirectly, but you're pushing papers around and making decisions. Everybody's lives are at stake, but it's not fulfilling. That it didn't do anything for me.
You were I seen this the other day as a guy was talking. He said, you're not tired, you're uninspired.
Exactly.
So this wasn't inspiring you either. This was draining. You felt this was an energy deficit doing this.
Oh, it was, and you could see my health was suffering. So I decided at the time, I was 52 or something, and I said, you know what? I am 50 years old. I am not going to hide this anymore. And I just decided at that moment that I was going to tear my paradigm down and rebuild it however I wanted to rebuild it. And from that moment on, I did not introduce myself as Kathryn Kauffman, nursing administrator. I introduced myself to people as Kathryn Kauffman, psychic medium. And then, I got some really bad chokes, oh my God, you do what? But 9 times out of 10, people will end up asking me questions rather than ridiculing me.
Well, that's what, and I told you, I mean, when I put this out that we were going to do this show tonight, I mean, I got a lot of private messages and stuff about it. Oh, when's it going to be on? Da 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 da. So there's a lot of people interested in this kind of stuff right now, for sure. So you're sort of coming in. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like at least a new renaissance in this kind of spirituality and sort of connecting to things as energy or different, alternative.
Right. It still it took a lot of bravery for me to do that, because I had conditioned myself to hide everything, not talk about it. And if I did talk about it, my friend would go, oh, Kathryn, you don't want to tell everybody that. They're going to think you're crazy. And, at one point I was just like, you know what? I don't care. I really don't care.
Well, and that's kind of my point. Is like when you started this, it was probably taboo, but I think you were right. You were probably at the beginning of that ride, this crest that we're seeing now. So how many years ago was that for you?
When I first started investigating and telling people on the side what I did?
Yeah.
That was back in the mid 80s to early 90s.
Wow.
And that's when I started doing the consulting with the paranormal groups, in the area.
Yeah.
Because there wasn't hardly anybody at that time who really did investigations.
Okay.
So we were a rare breed back then.
Well, they ended up making a movie about you guys. Let's be honest, or several, but one really big one, right? I mean, that's kind of the premise of. Wasn't that sort of the premise of Ghostbusters? Now they took a real tongue-in-cheek attitude about the whole thing,
Yeah,
right?
but that show was fun.
It sure was. But I think Dan Aykroyd's brother is a for real paranormal investigator, and that's sort of what was the catalyst for that storyline.
I think we're of the intelligence now, and the technological things that we have at our fingertips. We want to know, and we want to see it, and we want to hear it, and we want to know for sure where we're going.
Yeah, I think it's just part of the human condition, isn't it?
Yeah, we used to, you would just do what your parents told you. And if they told you you don't do that, hey, then you're like, okay, no problem. We didn't take it any further, but I think we're getting to the point where we're tired of not knowing, and we have the capability to know now. And I think we would know more if we could get science in this more to help us out with the investigative techniques. But now it could be that they already know things we don't and are just not letting it out.
Ooh, that sounds very conspiratorial. Do you have some knowledge you want to spill there?
Well, for instance, have you done any investigation on the X points?
No, that would be a topic that's completely unfamiliar to me. I come at this whole thing more from the Orco-R quantum entanglement sort of angle, personally. But I was raised in like a really ultra conservative sort of Christian upbringing. So, but I think to me, this is why this all fascinates me, because I think that what you're saying about science coming into this is what's ultimately going to. There's going to be a convergence somewhere. I just don't know where it is.
Yeah.
You know.
How many years have we watched shows on Star Trek about portals? The wormholes and portals.
Multi-dimensions.
Well, the X point,
and yep.
Yeah, the X point is a portal that is formed between the sun's magnetic field and the intersecting field of the Earth. Now, NASA has been investigating this since 2014. Okay. So suddenly we have these solar observatories that are being shut down, right?
Right.
So my feeling is maybe they're using the observatories to try to send stuff through these portals.
I had somebody else tell me that it isn't just the one in New Mexico that was shut down. And they came out, and I think there was a public press release on the one in New Mexico, right, that it had something to do with
a security breach.
I heard that it had something to do with like child pornography or something that was inside that was in the computer systems inside the facility. But and okay, whatever. But then someone else was telling me, yeah, that would be plausible. But are they all being shut down for that reason? And I was like, what are you talking about? And apparently, there's more. There's multiples all over the world of solar observatories that have been like weirdly shut down for a couple weeks, and then they came back. Right.
Right. But if you think about it, if you were thinking about trying to access these portals or use them, learn how to utilize them, because they now know where these portals are forming, it makes sense to me that you would need an observatory to do that.
Sure. Or some sort of device, instrument that you put in space, right?
Yeah, and the main thing is catching the portals as they form.
Okay.
So, yeah. So, it doesn't make any sense to me that science hasn't really gotten very investigative into where we go and what happens to us. I mean, they certainly have the technology to do a better job than the private sector.
Okay.
So maybe things have been discovered that haven't been released to us.
That's tough because there's so much information that comes out almost on a daily basis today with things like science and technology. That it's I don't know that you can keep up. it's crazy, how much
I know,
information comes
I
out.
know. Yeah, it absolutely is crazy.
But
Um,
now, when I caught your live show on Monday, though, you were talking about instrumentation and stuff that you guys are currently using. Do you want to elaborate on kind of that stuff a little bit for us? That, like,
well,
some of the stuff
the
you're.
biggest the biggest instrument that I use is myself.
Oh, that makes
So,
sense. Sure, right.
so what I do is I will go into an area and I usually will hold my hands up because I do a lot of sensing with my hands. There's an enormous amount of nerve endings in your hands and your feet, and I think more so in your hands. And one hand will be dominant over the other hand. So when I'm teaching mediums how to sense, I'll have them use an ice water technique where they submerge their hands in ice water. And the hand that is the most sensitive, of course, has the most amount of nerve endings developed. Now, what that shows is, let's say my left hand is more sensitive in the water. What that means is I've developed more right brain activity and right brain techniques. So
Interesting.
that left hand will be sensing more of the energy that's surrounding me in the area that I go into, which is extremely beneficial. So what I do is I go in first before anything else. What we usually do is we'll take pictures before I go in, because the camera picks up more light than your eyes. So, and you don't want to disturb the web of energy before you start taking pictures.
Okay.
So you're going to take your pictures first. That way you can catch more anomalies, and whatever web is set up there that might have, infrared light that you could maybe detect, you might catch. Then I go in first before the others do. I receive my information, and then I'll go back to the team and tell them, go to this room, take your readings here, you go to that room, you take your pictures there. And it seems like we get the best evidence doing that.
You sort of pre-screen it yourself then. But it's really
right.
interesting because you're saying it's kind of neat because one of the things that I talk about a lot here is the woo, what I call woo. Okay, and I don't know if you're familiar. Shifu, who's Shifu Kariega, who he was actually the guy that referred. So shout out to Shifu, Sherfu, for setting this up, or help me set this up. But he even said that, and that's one of the things that was really interesting about you is it seems like you take that. You're still you guys aren't. This isn't all about woo and it's about something's there. We're trying to measure it and we're trying to quantify it. So you're trying to almost measure out the woo and find what's verifiable and something that you can measure, right?
Well, yes, that's true, but also in the same respect, it is double checking the information that I get.
Oh, it's yeah, yep, I see what you're saying. Yep.
Yeah. Am I getting something, like if I tell somebody you need to go back to this closet and take pictures, and they get an anomaly in the closet, okay, but they don't get any anomalies anywhere else.
Okay.
That kind of verifies what I've said about that specific area.
Okay. So and you've been doing
I'm big on verification of information.
No, I get it. I mean, no, that's what I'm saying. It's interesting because, like I said, you're like trying to through measurements, readings, and you're taking historical data and it sounds. I think you said earlier you look at the statistics of it and stuff like that as well, right? So you're really trying to go in and qualify anomalous events or anomalous energies or anomalous things, and be able to record them.
Right. And my years as an ICU nurse, I bet I watched somebody die every single shift.
Wow.
Every single shift. Because I worked at a level 1 trauma center. And in our, compound location there, we pretty much had a death every 24 hours. So I got to look really closely at what happens in the dying process. I used my abilities to try to watch to see if I could see the spirit leave. I sensed the families in the room, and then, discreetly would ask the family, does this person have an aunt that looked like this and used to wear this or maybe said that? How did you know that? Well, she was mumbling about it a while ago. So,
Wow. Oh, so
I
because
had
you're
to
hiding.
cover it up.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yep.
Yeah, but it was a prime place to be put as a medium to practice getting it right.
So, in that statement, that implies though that there is some sort of process that the medium has to go through to discern which is the valid information and which isn't. Is that
right?
Okay.
Yes.
And that's the practice part of it then.
That's the practice part because the language of the subconscious is visual imagery and feeling. The only other time I will get words or sounds is because I'm clairaudient, but I feel like that the spirit has to be clairaudient as well to project that sound mentally.
Oh,
I know that's
okay.
complicated, but
No, I think you're saying you have to have the right. Yeah, they have to be the same on both sides of that transaction. So
yeah, because not all communication, like people who weren't good communicators in life, are still not in the afterlife, and to try to get information from them is extremely difficult. And this is a funny story I have to tell you. So, I never ask people who they want to have communication with, because remember, that's the test of the reading. So I've learned over the years that no matter how crazy or how weird, whatever they show me, that I have to divulge it, because 9 times out of 10, it's extremely important. So I was doing a reading for this lady in Danville, and this man came through, and he showed me his image. Very big guy, tall, stout, bald. And the weird thing was, he was sitting in my bathroom on the commode naked.
okay.
And I was like, this is the craziest thing I have ever seen in my life.
Now this
So
this is an image that goes through your mind, not that you actually see this person sitting in your bathroom naked on your toilet, right? This is something you see in your mind's eye kind of thing.
Yes and no. I had got up to go to the door, and I saw the flash of the image on the commode. And then in the next second, it was in my mind and it wasn't physical.
Okay.
That's all I can tell you. But so the lady comes in the next hour, and I'm supposed to give her this information, right? So my conscious mind is like, you can't say that. That's crazy.
Right.
And my subconscious is like, Kathryn, you are supposed to give whatever you get. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to go with this. Come to find out, after I gave her the information, that is exactly the description of her father, and that was exactly what he did to try to embarrass her. He would be naked on the commode and call to her like he needed help, and when she came in there, he would start laughing because he was naked.
A very specific, that's a very specific detail that would be really hard to just sort of come up with on your own, right? I mean, that's really interesting.
But I mean,
putting aside the fact that the poor woman probably needs therapy now because of that, but I mean, that's a whole other subject, right?
No, but I mean, that's such a strong validator for somebody who's grieving,
Sure.
It's It's irrefutable
Yeah,
for them.
because it's so specific in that particular instance. That would be mind-boggling, right?
Right, right. But I think that that's why spirits will give something impressive like that
I
because you can't refute it.
so one of the people that's really excited about me doing this interview with you tonight was my sister. So shout out, baby sister. Hi, Sarah. And she's particularly interested in what your opinion is about what does happen once someone passes over from being in the living world to the not living world.
Okay.
Just kind of get your breakdown on what do you think that process actually entails, and what do you feel happens?
Well, here's the scenario I do with a lot of people who get mediumships, because that is the very question. So I'm going to do the scenario with you. Okay? You up for it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So let's say we stop the interview. You have to go out to your car, get something out of your car, and suddenly your drunk neighbor runs you down. Okay?
Okay.
You all of a sudden feel really floaty, disoriented, and you notice at your feet that there's a body there that's got your clothes on it.
Okay.
And people are running up and saying, "What happened? I don't know, drunk Joe ran him down." Tell me what you're doing. What are you doing at that moment? It's happening right now. What are you doing?
Are you asking me what I think I would be doing at that moment?
Yeah, this is the scenario. This scenario is happening right now. You're floating there. People are screaming. What are you doing right now?
I don't know. I guess I don't know.
You don't know.
Yeah.
So that's my point.
Oh, right.
The scenario is
okay.
Nobody really knows how they're going to react.
So there is no one answer to that question, is kind of what you're getting at.
There is. I mean, it's consciousness driven. So if you haven't gone down that road and you haven't put yourself in that scenario, you are going to be confused.
Okay.
That's part of my theory as to why the family and friends that have passed on before you are always there when you pass.
Okay.
Always. And I feel like what they do is try to reorient you to your surroundings without a body, because it is such a very disorienting moment when you lose, your physical eyes are on the pavement, your sense of touch is on the pavement. It's very, it's almost like having vertigo, because you can't tell which way is up or down. So you have to have somebody there, I think, to reorient you to, this is how you move, this is where you can go, this is what you can do, and I think that the more that we can think about what we want to happen and get it patterned in our conscious mind,
yeah,
the consciousness will drive you forward and help you go to that place or that situation that you want to project yourself to.
right.
It's kind of like the holodeck on Star Trek. I mean, there's a lot of people that have patterned in their conscious mind, when I die, those pearly gates are going to be in front of me. This is what they look like. When I walk through those, I'm going to meet Jesus, and then I'm going to meet God, and then this is going to happen. All my family's going to be there. And you know what? They kind of have created that consciousness state of being through energy, and that's what they exist in.
Okay.
And, if I set down 50 different people and asked them what heaven was, you're going to get 50 different answers.
At least.
But the great thing about that is that in order to be heaven for each person, it has to be different.
Well, there's a question. So you're implying that you feel that once people die, they maintain their individuality. They don't go into some sort of collective consciousness or something like that, right? You think you maintain that what in
Yes.
eternity?
Yeah, because when I am in communication with a spirit, their individuality is intact. You
Right.
know, their humor, their memories, how they would have said something, their preferences, all of that is still intact. Now, you can commune with the collective, but you're still individualized.
Okay.
It would be similar to sitting down in a group of people and doing a group meditation. You can be a collective, but then you're still Kathryn at the end of the day.
Do you think what is it that you why do you, what is it that you think is different between because you can connect to people in the afterlife, right?
Yeah.
Can you connect to people that aren't in the afterlife? Is there something that happens in that transition that makes them more tunable, or for lack of a better word?
Well, I'll clarify just a little bit more what you're asking.
Well, I mean, can you reach out? Can you reach out to someone's spirit if it's already in someone's, if it's still in someone's body? Okay,
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So there's something that there's. Are you saying? Oh, you can. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, that's living mediumship.
Okay, I didn't know that existed.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when you're doing dead energy, that is spiritual mediumship, you're dealing with dead energy, but you can do living mediumship and connect with somebody who's still in a body.
Is it different for you? Is it a different process or a methodology?
No, it's the same for me, but sometimes I have difficulty telling whether the person is dead or alive.
Okay.
Because, to me, energy is energy,
Yeah.
whether it's in a body or not. And so sometimes it is difficult to tell whether or not they're living. Now, most of the time, the people I've done living mediumship on have still been alive, but they're very elderly. And so the majority of their brainwave state is theta. And they're in late 80s, 90s, people are having a lot of OBE type of experiences. And so it's easier to connect with their spirit when they're having an OBE. So, I think that's part of it.
So they're sort of their physical self is starting to make that transition ahead of time.
Right. It's
them,
like practicing riding a bike, you know how elderly people will be staring off into space and you think that they've drifted off and with their eyes open, but they're really connected to that different dimension, the fourth dimension they're connected to. And as soon as you bring them back around and go, hey, look at me, here I am, what are you doing? And they'll say, oh, I was just talking to Bobby, and then the daughter will say, Bobby's been dead for 20 years. So, they'll go out of their body and then back in and out.
And you know what's funny?
It's just kind of practice.
Every family has that story. It's not about the same person, you know what I mean? But every family has somebody in their family, Aunt Petunia or somebody that has gone through this. And everybody in the family knows about it, but nobody talks about it except, when they're taking the piss of it, you know what I mean? Or making fun of it. Kind of thing.
Right.
But no one sat back and went, you know what? Every family has this story.
Yeah, and then, too, when people are in the dying process, and you're going to see this a lot with this category of people, but they'll all of a sudden clutch the side rails of the bed as if they're falling, or they'll grab onto you like they're falling. So what's happening in that moment is they're feeling their spiritual energy leaving, and they're trying to get their bearings or trying to hold on to something. So, at that moment, you just have to reassure them that, this feeling will pass and you're okay.
I've read a bunch. There's a bunch of medical literature now where they're using I can't remember. I think it's in Washington State. There's one clinical trial where they're using psychoactive agents for people that are
Mhm.
terminally ill,
Mhm.
and using it as sort of a way to ease them into transition. And
Mhm.
apparently, that when they do this to these people, it very closely mimics that state, which I think is what you're describing, of when people
Right, it
actually
does.
pass. So, how do you
Mhm.
feel about that? How do you feel about people? I mean, I that's one instance that those kind of
As
drugs are
long
used
as
for.
they're
But
conscious of what the drug is accomplishing, I think that that's perfect because, that's just more practice. And that it really takes away the disorientation and the confusion
do
at
you
the moment
think
of separation.
that when people use these kinds of things, though, that it's actually connecting them through brainwave activity to that other
Yes,
side? So that being the
right.
case, so people that aren't dying, I'm saying, do you find an ethical issue with people that are using those things, say like recreationally and stuff? Because there's a whole lot of with DMT and these people going down to South
Hmm.
America to have these big out of body spiritual events and kind of thing. Where do you kind of
Well,
come down on that?
if you're doing it for spiritual advancement, because part of that is connecting to that other dimension and being able to send your energy back and forth.
So you
If you're
you
doing
you
it for
feel that?
spiritual advancement,
So you
but
actually
if you're
feel?
just,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
doing it for recreation, I can't. I think that that would lead to destructive nature.
I mean, yeah, indulgence.
Hmm.
Yeah. So then you do feel though that these are sort of breaking those barriers down, because a lot of people feel
Hmm.
that way. Okay, I'm not forming an opinion here. I'm saying that this is what people discuss, right? So there's a lot
Hmm.
there's a consensus of people that are starting to feel like these types of uh like ayahuasca and stuff like that is actually separate or tearing that wall down and allowing you to kind of your consciousness or your spirit or whatever to sort of move over to that other realm and commune with it. And that's
Well,
actually what's
it's
happening. Do you think it's that, or is it just a trick their brains playing on them?
well. Here's my opinion on it. It's accelerating that connection, yes, but there are going to be deficits in it because it is chemically induced. You can
Okay, because it's not
do
actually
this on your
happening,
own
right?
through, yeah, you
Yeah.
can do this on your own through meditation and becoming very
Yep.
proficient at theta wave meditation. That takes hard work, and let's face it, we don't want to work. We don't want to work hard at it.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard you can
Um,
do it through meditation. People do it through like
yeah,
Kundalini yoga,
yeah,
um,
which is harder, but it's
sweat
more
lodges.
pure. See, it's not adulterated with the chemical.
Yeah, right. Because you're doing it naturally. You're not
Right,
instigating it
right,
externally. Yeah, I get
right.
that. Okay.
So, there's benefits and deficits, I guess.
Well, anytime you start playing around with body chemistry, especially brain chemistry, you're rolling dice. I mean, let's be honest. Um,
Yeah. Now there was a study that they did not too long ago in Germany, and I think it's on one of my past episodes of Monday Night Live about life after death. But they induced a state of death in, I think, a group of 900 or 2,000 people. I can't remember, but and it was a state of death for at least 20 minutes. Now, if the brain doesn't have flow after 3 minutes, it cannot produce memories at all. None. Not supposed to, anyway. But the result of the study after resuscitation of all of these volunteers were that a huge majority of the participants recalled memories during that 20-minute period, during the whole 20-minute period,
Interesting.
regardless of their religious backgrounds or ethnicity.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
that's a biologic, at least human species That's what you're saying, is that's at least a human species type condition. It doesn't really have anything to do
Yes.
with your creed or your religion or any of that.
Right, right. And the majority of the people did recall in those memories a light, seeing a light.
Right.
So now my question to you is, what is the light that everyone is seeing?
Right. What's it? Light is energy, right? So
Right.
that would be my
But what
first
is
assumption. Yeah, what is? Is that God? Is that the oneness? Is that unity? I don't know.
I feel like it's yourself. Because if you look at what are the constituents of a living body and a dead body, and you subtract those, what you have is, a spirit is an electromagnetic field. We know that. We can measure that. Dead bodies don't have an electromagnetic field.
Okay.
We know that spirits are kinetic energy. We know spirits can move stuff. We've filmed it. We've experienced it. Dead bodies don't move. There is a kinetic force that leaves the body. We know that there's a thermic variant that leaves the body because dead bodies are room temperature. A lot of ghost hunters will use, thermometers to pick up thermic variants. So we know that the spirit is a thermic variant. The most important one is number 4, and that is that your body emanates ultraviolet light and to some degree, ultraviolet light, but mostly infrared light.
This is what you were
So
talking about the other night with bioluminescence and stuff, right?
yeah. So now those are not on the visible light spectrum, and that's why most light anomalies are picked up at night when we go ghost hunting. The cameras are going to pick up more wavelengths of light, and your eyes won't be able to see that. So when you are perceiving a light after you pass, now think about it, you don't have eyes. So I feel like you may be perceiving your own true essence of light.
Right.
Like that's you.
Oh, that's fascinating. I've always viewed this. I've had this. Yeah, this is funny. I've always had this weird sort of idea that when I meditate and things like that about consciousness and spirituality, that there is a source. That source is very bright, and we are just the lenses through which that light passes, and that's free will, right? That's where we get to decide what that light looks like as it goes through us into the world.
Exactly.
So we sort of choose whether we want that light to be, destructive or constructive, or positive, or I don't like positive or negative. I like constructive and destructive better.
Right. And that, well, you've gotten into another topic there. A lot of what I do is discernment of evil.
Okay.
And, and people don't realize that evil works through you every day. You have to evaluate, am I being destructive in any way to anyone else?
Right.
Is my action, even though it's valid or may be justified, but is it destructive?
Yeah, ultimately.
That's a big ethical dilemma.
And it seems so practical to me too, because that which you resonate with is sort of tend to be what you attract, right? So
it is.
It goes back to that kind of that's where it all comes back together with energy for me. It's like whatever energy you put out into and I mean energy, you can classify this any way you want, right? You could say, energy or your interactions with people. If you're going to have nothing but negative, grumpy interactions with people, you're going to tend to have a crappy day. But if if even if someone's interacting with you that way, if you choose not to and to keep saying, no, I'm doing it my way, right? Then you can kind of turn that stuff around. So that's sort of where it all comes back together for me. Like I said, is like I feel you when you talk about things like changes in temperature and light and stuff like that, because isn't it funny how it all seems to go back to some form of the descriptive words are all some form of energy at its root, right?
Exactly it does. Now, if you have somebody who is being destructive with you and trying to tear you down, so like you said, that choice, you have the choice to not connect with it or to entrain to it.
Right.
And so the person who chooses to engage in it is in training to that energy at that moment.
I know we're running up close here on the 60-minute. Boy, we just scratched the surface here, lady.
I know.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know you're on a bit of a hard stop. We've got to keep these conversations going. We got to do this again. Okay. Definitely.
Yeah, you haven't even heard the doppelganger story.
I know we even talked about. So if I'm going to summarize here, it seems to me like you feel like you're an antenna that you've sort of tuned. Or tune specific energies, then you interpret those energies and correlate those with either past events, or the energy of deceased people, or like live people. You said live mediumship, which I didn't even know existed.
Right.
So that's kind of what you do, right? You sort of receive, you take time and you methodically tune yourself to some sort of state or energy, and then you sort of record that after the fact.
Right, exactly.
It's interesting.
And it has to have specifics that are verifiable from the client.
Is this something you think anybody can do, or anybody has access to?
Yes, it's a practiced skill. Just like some people are born with a natural ability, let's say playing the piano. Some people can just pick up a book and start playing, and if they practice, they become great, right?
Yep.
But you can practice and become really good, but you have to work at it, and most people don't want to work.
Do you feel
we don't? We're lazy.
You feel that some people are born with just a natural or a natural ability that's greater than other folks, or do you think everyone sort of starts out on the same plane?
I think it's in the DNA and the genetics. Let's just postulate that, let's take my family, for example. More women than men were psychic in my family, and there's a lot of family stories about so-and-so was able to do this, or they saw that, and then it happened. And the stories were more related to the females than males in the family, which makes sense because females use more right brain function. And the right brain is the area that this ability is catalyzed through.
Is that the artistic or the logical side too?
The right brain is the intuition, the subconscious, and the emotions.
Okay.
And the left brain is the more cognitive, logical, scientific side. So
that makes sense. Then that's why it comes from that other side.
Yeah, if you're perpetuating it in the genetic makeup, more use of right brain function through the female DNA, then that's passed down to other females in the family.
So it's gender and genetics.
Right. Exactly.
And that kind of dovetails into woman's intuition too, right?
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
Exactly, because women are more right brain. So, yeah.
We're going to have you back on. I know I'm already pushing you past your deadline here. Next time, why don't we have you come on and talk about the doppelganger? We'll get that out of the way.
Well, I can leave you with the doppelganger and then pick up with the flying oxygen tank.
Okay, let's do the doppelganger. Go ahead.
So when I was doing consulting work for KPI, we had a case in Louisville, and it was a case involving a young child, so I can't give any details on it, but there was activity in the child's bedroom and activity in the parents' closet, a lot of activity in the parents' closet. So I was in a group of 3. It was myself, my husband, and the team leader. And we normally don't split up on an investigation, but there wasn't 4 of us. There was only 3 of us during this investigation. So I was upstairs and the 2 guys were downstairs. So I had done my sweep of the parents' bedroom. I did not go in the closet, though, where most of the activity was, talked about. For some reason, I wanted to find Philip and David. So I started down the hallway, and Philip was walking towards me with his head down.
These are guys on your team, right? Philip and David and your husband. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, and so I asked him point blank, I said, "Why are you not downstairs with David?" And he did not answer me. He kept his head down. He went past me, and he took his arm and waved for me to come into the closet. And I got cold chills right away. My gut feeling went off, and it was a sick stomach feeling. And I was like, I need to go find David. So I went down the steps. This is a split level house. I went down the steps and around the corner, and there was Philip and David.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And I was like, oh my God.
Oh.
That was a doppelganger, and it tried to get me to go into the closet. What would have happened if I'd have done that? What would have happened to me?
Was there something that had previously happened there? Is that what was the I don't know what I'm saying here. Psychic connection.
What was the etiology?
Yeah.
I have no idea. No idea. I know that whatever it was malevolent. It copied Philip perfectly. But on a doppelganger, there's always something wrong with the copy.
Okay.
And I think that's why it had its head down, because there was something wrong with the copy.
Like it wasn't going to
really set me off.
Yeah, it was not going to reveal the error or the thing that was wrong to you.
Right.
I get what you're saying. Yep.
Right.
Oh.
So, yeah, that's the scariest investigation I've ever been on, just because of that.
Is it sort of your gut that something happened there, and or are these type of psychic things or paranormal things tied to some sort of event that's happened in these places?
Well, there's an innumerable amount of things that can go wrong at a property. You can have a portal there that lets stuff in and out, and sometimes when people keep their loved ones' ashes in the house, that creates a portal, and it's just like leaving the back door open to the kitchen. Everything starts coming in, so you never know, was there a traumatic incident that happened there? Did somebody invite a demonic influence in? Did somebody leave the doorway open for something else to get in?
Yep.
That's why I can't really say. There's no set way to clear a property, because there's so many variables that you have to take into account. Each house is so individualized that you have to really just dissect and then figure out what to do with what you've got.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting. That's why I love my job.
All right, Kathryn, how do people out there in podcast land find you, and can they send questions to you, things like that? How do they pull that off?
I take questions on Facebook. Every day on my Facebook page, I have daily planetary influences, because I feel like the moon is the most influential instigator in our lives today. So I kind of give a sneak peek every day at what the moon's influence is on your body and your psyche for the day. And then I do a free 3-card inspirational reading on Fridays on my Facebook page. You can find me on YouTube, just Kathryn Kauffman on YouTube, Psychic Medium. And then all of the Monday night episodes are on the YouTube channel. And then if you want to watch the live show and join in the chat, that's the Monday night live shows on Facebook, and they're at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Facebook.
And Instagram,
then this is something fun. The second Sunday of every month, I have what's called the Haunted Items Hunt on Facebook. A lot of things that you pick up at flea markets and antique marts and peddlers mall, some of those have haunted energy in them. And so I go around and I psychically tune into what's haunted. I'll measure it to make sure it has EMF, or maybe it's, generating on the portal or the word generator. And so I post 4 pictures. 2 of the items are haunted, 2 of the items are not. You have to use your intuition and guess which ones are and which ones aren't, and it's just a lot of fun. And then if people are interested in a reading, they can catch me on KathrynKauffman.com.
Perfect. So
there you go.
You got like your own sort of haunted antiques roadshow going on there. Where people could, that's phenomenal. I love that. I love it.
And I developed that because I kept dragging stuff home that was haunted. And I was, and I was like, I would have to get rid of half of it. And I was like, how can I teach people not to do this?
That's brilliant.
That's how that was born.
Well, perfect. All right, folks, that's Kathryn Kauffman. Check her out Monday Night Live on Facebook and on Instagram. And then, like I said, we'll put some links down into the description and stuff for you. Thanks for listening, everyone. I really appreciate it. The show's growing exponentially, and it's thanks to all of you out there, especially for all those likes and the shares that you guys are showing some love for the show, and I really appreciate it. So other than that, Kathryn, we will definitely have you on the show again, and we will catch up
Thank you,
with
Matt.
No problem. Fantastic having you on, and looking forward to doing it again. So out there, everyone, we'll catch you next time. Bye, Sickles.